Good morning, viewers. I am Fatma Osman, also known as Sonia. I am going to be interviewing Murshid Abdalla MP, candidate for Mvita, for Okoa Mombasa. Okoa Mombasa is a non-partisan coalition of workers' unions, business, professional associations, civil society, organizers and others who have come together out of concern for the livelihood of well-being of the residents of Mombasa. We do not subscribe or support any particular political party. We do not have partisan politician aspirants or objectives. We are committed to policies that uplift the socio-economic status of Mombasa and the coastal region residents and Kenya as a whole. We support and advocate devolution as envisioned in the 2010 Constitution of Kenya, and for public's participation in decisions affecting them. Mr. Murshid Abdalla, how are you doing this morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
Who is Murshid Abdalla?
Mimi ni mzaliwa wa Mombasa, Old Town, na nimekulia Old Town, Mombasa. Nimesoma Serani Primary School, alafu nikaenda through the Aga Khan schools. Baada ya A-levels nilifanya kazi for 4 years in shipping Mitchell ports. Alafu nikapata scholarship ya MEWA, Muslim Education Welfare Association, kwenda kusoma India, kusoma law. Na India vile law ni postgraduate study, nilianza na kusoma political science na public administration kama degree ya kwanza. Alafu nikafanya law degree, nikafanya na Masters of Law ambayo ilikuwa it majored in constitutional law. Nilirudi nyumbani, I went through Kenya School of Law, nikawa admitted as an advocate of the High Court. Lakini nikarudi nikaendelea na kazi yangu shipping, nikawa legal and claims manager for submarine container lines. Nikafanya hapo for more than 11 years. I was a teacher, lecturer, part-time Bandari College for more than 7 years. Nilikuwa pia chairman wa CDF ya Mvita constituency, the old Mvita constituency ambayo ilikuwa the patron was Mheshimiwa Najib Abdalla. I did work with the Poverty Eradication Commission. I also was honored to work as a commissioner in the Interim Independent Boundaries Review Commission, where we reviewed our boundaries to kapata the current 290 constituencies. My last tour of duty was the National Police Service Commission, where I was a commissioner under what is known as the Kabuludi team, kubadilisha ile taswira ya askari wetu from a force inatumia maguvu, yani iwe ni service ya kuhudumia wananchi. It was then that I was invited by elders and stakeholders to do a political position, and that is Murshid Abdalla Mohammed for you in a nutshell.
So what drives you?
What drives me is the idea that I'm very passionate about the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Najua sana kule mahali tulikotoka kisiasa, kuanzia colonial times and the Portuguese, the Arab colonization, the British colonization, and then post-independence Kenya. I'm aware kwamba tulikuwa na ugatuzi tulipoanza ilikuwa ikiitwa majimbo, lakini that constitution ikaharibika, tukaingia kwenye one party authoritarian state. Alafu tukawa na ile struggle for more than 20 years or 30 years in trying to build up a new Kenya. Tukawa na struggles ya multi-party politics, tukawa na struggles za kuondoa problems zetu 2007, 2008, tukawa na post-election violence, na tukapata the new constitution which is a game changer. Na nikiangalia ile historia yetu, it's a history of discrimination, ni history ya marginalization, ni history ya watu wengine kutojihisi ni Wakenya kama wengine kwa sababu ya sera na sheria zilipangwa na serikali ya kati kama ilivyokuwa ikijulikana at that time, ama serikali kuu, that was central government. There was on independence we adopted an economic policy paper, sessional paper, ile ya 1963 number 10, ambayo we can trace roots a lot of marginalization to that policy, na kwa hakika mpaka leo haijaondolewa, ile iko bado. Kwa sababu hiyo na kwa sababu jamii yetu wa pwani wako na rasilimali zao, lakini hawana haki juu ya rasilimali zao, ama haki ni kidogo. Tuna shida za ardhi, tuna shida ya rasilimali, tuna shida ya kwamba serikali tangu time ya ukoloni mpaka leo inaleta resources kidogo sana for social services, nayo ni mambo ya health na mambo ya education, na tumebakia nyuma. Vijana wetu are lagging behind. The rate of unemployment iko high ndani ya Kenya hii, lakini if you look at the ratio of how high it is kwenye area kama zetu iko very high. So because I need to better my society, because I need to make our country better, I need to implement this constitution. Na implementers of constitution ni members of parliament, manake wao in the constitution itself waambiwa parliament shall pass laws to give effect to the constitution. Na nimeona kwamba ma MP wetu wengi wa marginalized areas hawafanyi chochote kuhusu utekelezaji wa katiba. Tuko na katiba bila ya katiba, na zile haki ambazo zimetengwa kwenye katiba yetu tunazikosa kwa sababu tunapeleka watu ambao hawafai, hawajui, hawana experience. Ndio maana watu waliponiuliza, I stepped up nikasema, now let me wear a political hat and become an MP with the sole purpose of implementing the Constitution of Kenya.
So what do you do currently?
I'm campaigning for the Mvita MP seat, but I'm always a lawyer. I'm an advocate.
You are a lawyer. So what inspired you to wait for an MP?
Inspiration yangu imetokamana na I've always been civic educating watu for more than 20 years in local FM stations in Nairobi and Mombasa, na nimeona kwamba shida yetu ya nchi kama hii ni shida ya uongozi uliokuwa na uadilifu na kujua. Kwa hivyo kitu ambacho kina inspire mimi ni kwamba tulitetea haki zetu na tunapata hii katiba, kuanzia kutetea mambo ya uhuru. Kwa hivyo najua nchi yetu iko na great potential. Watu wetu, youths wetu, our women and people of all walks of life, we have a great potential, lakini our potential imekuwa imezuilika kwa sababu hatuna watu ambao wanaweza kufanya huduma na utawala bora. Kwa hivyo the idea kwamba we can be great is what inspires me in driving myself in politics, and I have very big ambitions so far as politics go.
So will you be a leader or a representative?
You have to be, you know, I will definitely be a leader. Obviously, I am a representative of the people, and a representation of people can be anybody. Kama unavyojua, qualifications don't matter. We are very low on ethics. Lakini if you become a leader, if you aspire to be a leader, then you have to go beyond that. Now, work in integrity, you must have a vision, you must induce others to follow you. Now, even my name itself, Murshid, means leader. So obviously, I would like to believe, as what people say, that I'm truly a leader, not just a mere representative. Because to be a representative, anyone can be one. But to be a representative and also be a leader, that takes a lot. Na kwenye, in my different aspects of life, both private and public, I've taken up leadership positions quite naturally.
Okay. So what do you perceive will be your role as an MP?
The role of the MP is, number one, you actually make policy and you make the law. And the most critical aspect of an MP post-2010, the implementation of the Constitution, you must bring enough and proper policies and legislative measures that give effect to the Constitution, which means you need to know not only the word of the Constitution, lakini ile spirit, nia chini ya ile Constitution, ili katiba ilikuwa inataka kuondoa udhaifu wa aina gani. Kwa hivyo hilo ni jambo muhimu sana kwa to drive yourself as an MP, kwa kutengeneza sera na sheria. MP pia iko na umuhimu sana wa kuleta national cake to your people. National cake is not shared by the executive. Partly yes, lakini the people who pass the budget ambayo imekuwa generated na executive ni members of parliament. Na members of parliament wakienda executive to pitch for the budget, education budget, health budget, budget for fisheries, budget for waterworks, ambazo I'm reflecting na hizi kwa sababu ndio shida zilizo kwetu. Then the MP must interact in appropriate committees when budget is being formulated and justified. Now uangalia kwa macho, and you must have your statistics and your pitch in place kwamba yes, we are getting a budget for the Ministry of Education, lakini so far as our schools in Mvita or the region in general, we are not getting consummate to our needs compared to other regions, and you must back your statistics very well. Lazima ufanye homework yako in your region very well, ukaona ile shida iko mali gani, mahitaji yako mali gani, so that at the very initial stages your budget formulation you are interceding on behalf of the people, so that kwetu kama kuna shida ya health, we need more doctors, we are able to capture more budget. We need more schools and more teachers who are able to capture the budget. We need to redo our drainage systems and our waste management systems. Then you must get the budget for the county then to start doing it and implementing it. Kwa hivyo, on the issue of bringing the national cake to your people, role ya MP becomes critical. The next role of your MP is now you come and you become the watchdog over the executive. Any executive excesses are tempered and controlled by the legislature. For example, hata kama rais ametengeza cabinet yake, ukaja ukaona the cabinet does not reflect the representation of the people of Kenya, ama kuna watu ambao they are short in terms of the integrity chapter, wewe kama parliamentarian, you are the one who actually agrees or rejects the nominees of the president. The same thing for all our constitutional commissions. The president will nominate by the procedure of selecting them, but it comes to parliament to check kama regional ethnic balance imetimizwa, kama the correct educational qualifications imetimizwa, kama the right integrity levels imetimizwa. You have the right to articulate and reject. Now the good thing about all these measures, Nikomba, you will make sure that in terms of very important and critical independent offices, where the president may want to do things in accordance with the status quo, where kija majina kama yale, you just simply reject them and give reasons for the rejection. Ili we start filtering the correct candidates who must come and occupy critical offices, ambazo zitatoa critical services for the people of Kenya to resolve, for instance, land commission, our land problems, human rights commission for our human rights violations issues, police service commission to get the face of Kenya and security apparatus in place. We can no longer afford who are relaxed and complacent in fulfilling the objectives of the Leadership and Chapter Act, that is Chapter 6. However, the role of the MP is very critical. The role of the MP also is critical in terms of checking out government expenditure. Budgets zimetolewa, the executive amepewa your budget, be it the national side or the county side. They're supposed to implement certain projects, and MPs have no role in implementing. Lakini wakimaliza, we have the Auditor General who takes all these issues to Parliament to tell Parliament kwamba imetolewa pesa hii na hii na hii for services, for projects, lakini this money has been misspent by the county government or different ministries. Kazi ya Auditor General is simply to give you the report. It's the job of Parliament and MPs now to take up the report, scrutinize it closely, and then look for what are the corrective measures so that we hold people accountable, including sending them to the DPP, sending them to the EACC, so that we can have reliable and good governance. Hii katiba yetu is about the governance structures, and it is very transformative. Lakini wale watu ambao they will lead the transformation are the MPs. We also need to align our laws and our policies to capture the aspirations ndani ya katiba. Bila ya hivyo itakuwa katiba yetu is a dead letter. So that's how I consider myself in what I will do, and that's the true role of the member of parliament. It's not just about running things like CDF.
So what gaps have you seen among the serving MPs?
Yeah.
And how do you plan to correct them?
Okay. So number one, in terms of resource allocations, it cannot be the case. Tangu 1963 in Mvita constituencies, public schools have always been the same. Sisemi habari ya schools generated by CDF. I cannot conceive an idea kwamba our clinics have been there since colonial times. There is no clinic that has been added except private clinics, or maybe a CDF clinic. I am not able to fathom why we don't get necessary budgets ambazo zitatufuel hizi. I don't see why we are looking at run-down pieces of drainage which can never be repaired. They have to be uprooted and redone. I don't see why we don't have water in this town, in our constituency, simply because Baricho na kule mahali ambao maji natoka kwingineko, these pipes were laid as early as 1920 for a small population. They are damaged. We need to redo this infrastructure. It's the work of the MP to articulate this and to corner the necessary budget. Na kwa hivyo shida ambazo naziona done by the current MPs, they have failed absolutely in cornering the budget for the needs of our people. The most astonishing thing is how our MPs allowed our port services to go from its natural place, and that is Mombasa, Amapwani, ikaenda sehemu zingine za nchi. It is incredible. It is a conflict of interest. It is against the constitution. Kwa hivyo tuna wachungaji ambao wamelala, or if we want to be more harsh on them, they're the ones who are complicit in the running down of our economy in the region, and therefore also in the Mvita constituency. Now maybe what I will do different is very simple. I will act my role as a proper MP, like I have said, na nianze kuzicorrect hizi step by step, so that for the first time, maybe since independence, we get real leadership.
Okay, so what are areas of interest when it comes to lawmaking? Like, which bills are you going to push for in the parliament?
Okay, the first one is the KPA bill is completely outdated. Based on the old constitution where the resource is centralized to the Ministry of Finance, halafu from there tunatumia the trickle down effect of sessional paper number 10 of 1963, which has never worked. The KPA Act has to be redone to capture the fact that there is devolution, to capture the fact that it is a shared jurisdiction, a shared function between the national government in terms of territorial water and policies, international waters and policies. Now, the county government, which is in charge of harbors and ferries, our national leaders pretend there is nothing like this in the Katiba. So that is the first piece of legislation. And we look at the other piece of legislation is Article 66(2), ambayo inazungumzia kwamba rasilimali ama uwekezaji unaopatikaniwa kwenye maeneo fulani ya nchi yote ni lazima yafaidi mtu ama watu wanaoishi pale, the local people and the local economy. If any of our parliamentarians go for that, it means we have some percentage itakuwa reserved for the local economy and the local people in terms of employment, supply of foods, supply of services, procurement of all this. That is the manner in which you are going to benefit from the resources which are within your region, and also unahakikisha kwamba the rest of the country also benefits from that resources. And since resources go all over the country, no one is going to be shortchanged. That is the bill which again is critical. Then I will do a bill to further the interest of the provisions of Article 43 of the Constitution about socio-economic rights. The right to food, the right to shelter, the right to education, the right to health and the likes. All these are critical. Ikiwa katiba yetu ya devolution, nothing else works, and we only had that provision. I'm telling you, we are home and dry. These are the pieces of legislation which I will put in place, apart from ensuring the basic rights chapter, there are so many components as to how we need to get the benefit of the basic human rights, including the issues of citizenship. Proper legislation needs to be in place to implement that. So those are some of the pieces of legislation which I have in mind, which needs key changes. And generally, any piece of legislation needs to be aligned to the requirements of our Katiba. And that is a huge area. That's really the implementation of the Katiba.
I'm a bit concerned about when you say you want to create jobs. Recently, I have seen very many manufacturers or factories have closed down in Mombasa. A lot of businesses have moved out. And even recently, there has been a blow from KRA to these companies which are manufacturing. They have come up with you will be paying tax on manufacturing.
Now,
so I am sure that it is going to be a big blow to very many companies.
Now,
so how are you going to create jobs,
yep,
yet businesses are closing down?
So businesses are closing down. Sababu, we're not taking into consideration the effects of COVID and the effects of sheer corruption and cartels and grand corruption in place. So we also have a capture of the Treasury, which ought to be an independent office, so working independently from the executive. Our taxation policies and our monetary policies, which are supposed to keep an even keel on the way we are developing, all those have been captured. So taxes are used not necessarily to raise and generate income and control inflation. Monetary policies are misused for political ends. They are all weaponized. KRA is weaponized, and many of our institutions are weaponized, not for the sake of the general good of the public, but for the sake of a small group of people who enjoy the benefits of a colonial mentality that people are nothing, that we can oppress people for the sense of personal gain. So zote hizi ukizicombine pamoja ndio tunapata huu umaskini tunaosikia. So long as our economic environment is depressed, it is no longer capable of bringing in more investments. So long as we don't have more investments, we cannot expand on the possibilities of employment. We need to use something like what was used in Germany, for example. When Germany was devastated, it had to do a lot of social engineering and economic engineering to boost back the economy. They used to call it the Marshall Plan. Twasema sisi ndani ya Kenya yetu hii, we need a serious Marshall Plan. We need to clean up the issue of leadership. We need to make sure that we have integrity. We need to make sure that we have enough laws and policies to curb corruption. It shouldn't be just a showcase thing that we do corrupt. We go after corruption selectively or or seasonally. So there is a lot of social engineering in our Tanzania which needs to be meshed up together in order for us to open up our business environment. I don't understand why hatuna garbage disposal plant hapa in Mombasa County, wrong policies, grand corruption. I don't understand why we don't have a desalination plant. These are very simple things to implement. I don't understand many things. Kwa sababu we are talking of grand corruption, number one, which is corruption by high-level officials for personal gain. We are talking of state capture, which is the capture of state institutions by business interests and even politicians who sleep on the same bed with business interests, or by themselves they become the businessmen and they enter into politics to further their business interest. We also have the issue of the status quo, because grand corruption, na tukiangalia hii mambo state capture, it is to ensure that we maintain the status quo, meaning the colonial mentality of absorbing other people's wealth for personal gain at the cost of everybody else. So if we combine these three, we have an explosive cocktail of where we are so underdeveloped. When Singapore started, they invested in good leadership. It had no resources because leadership were upright. Today, in one generation, Singapore was transformed from a third world country, which was at par in terms of GDP with Kenya. But after just one generation, they are at par with the richest among the world of nations. They are very rich economically. We can't even compare. Even the US and others will be struggling in front of Singapore. So the only thing that sets us apart, the only thing that sets us apart is just proper, upright leadership, and that is why very few constitutions in this world have a leadership and integrity chapter. Kenya has it because we have known that our problem is leadership and integrity. So this leadership aspect cuts across all the state officers, which mean the MCA, the MP, the governor, the senator, the president, the deputy president, the members of the members of the judiciary, our diplomatic staff, and a whole cocktail of independent offices become state officers because we have realized that our problem is corruption, which is laced with ethnicity, which is laced with tribalism, and which is laced with nepotism and cronyism. Hasa zote hizi tukizichanganya pamoja and we allow this kind of situation to exist, we have economic policies that are headless, that are bent towards personal gain, that we are veering towards monopolization of many things and industries and running out competition, and instead of expanding the economic field, we are contracting it, and that is why we have this gross unemployment, including our specific case, whereby sports services have been unconstitutionally migrated elsewhere, and the SGR became a monopoly and pushing out the transport business, yani lorries. It has not only killed the economy of Mombasa, but the entire northern corridor, all the way to Malaba. All the cities have been devastated.
Okay, you have just mentioned a few of social and economically challenges.
Yes.
Now, as an MP, how will you address these challenges in your capacity? Because we do understand that not everything comes under MP's capacity.
Kabisa. You see, when you say that nothing comes under the jurisdiction,
isn't everything
not
come.
everything comes. Sasawa. Let's take a local example.
Yes.
We have mounds of rubbish in Mombasa.
Oh yes.
Right. It
We
is
have a lot of
affecting
garbage. Yes.
our tourist industry.
Yes.
It is affecting trade and business. It is affecting the general health of the population, and we lose so many man hours trying to treat ourselves, and we're losing a lot of money.
Yes.
Now, you will say that collecting rubbish is the work of the governor and his team. Like, even if they don't do their work, what is my role? I represent the people of Mvita as a national member of parliament. My jurisdiction goes beyond simply Mvita constituency. It can easily come across all the 6 other constituencies with my former MPs. The only thing that you could ever do is, number one, can't you speak about it? Can't you articulate about it? I'm representing the interests of my constituencies. I have every right to raise a ruckus and take corrective action in every platform, including that of parliament. Now, even when we see that there are corrupt activities in terms of what is going on, you have to articulate it, raise it in the correct forum, that is parliament, and seek to have all institutions of accountability to come together and make sure that this thing is stopped. So there are so many things. I would imagine that the work of MP, Member of Parliament, is so powerful. If I go by the dictum when explaining about Parliament in the UK, for example, we borrowed our system from the United Kingdom, that the members of Parliament or Parliament is so powerful, it can do anything except turn a male into a female. You see, so my area of jurisdiction, and I know my constitution well, I know my political science very well, I'm a student of political science, I know exactly where my roles are, which are my central roles, which are my peripheral roles. I know how to work with the system in order to make sure that it works for us. And especially implementation of the Katiba, which is the masterpiece of what we need to do, that is the sole purpose and function of a member of parliament.
Okay. How will you assess your effectiveness in confronting these challenges? Why and what do you think you will do better?
I am a doer. I have never failed in terms of my public office's lifestyle, the way I've conducted myself, the way I've worked. Nimetengeza sera nyingi, nimepeleka mambo mengi mbele, tumeachieve mambo mengi, even when I was a CDF chair long back. Now, what I'm saying is, one of the things ambayo, if you want to succeed, you must have stakeholder engagements and public participation in whatever you do. Is it making legislation, making policy, executing accountability? There works. If you cannot have a multi-agency approach and have the experience of doing that, and then on the other side have a public participation approach, and stakeholder approach means also non-governmental organizations and also development partners. If you don't get involved in a very smart way in doing multi-agency approach and also institutional approach, in addition to public participation, there is little that I can achieve as an MP. I have a proven track record in multi-agency approach, in public participation, in making sure that everybody is on board so that things work very efficiently. So my rate of success, I have the tools of doing it, I have the platform of doing it, skyrocket. I believe that if I'm given the opportunity for MP for the first time, what were hasa annulet really, what are you really, how an MP can function to change society, and I'm going to raise the bar so high that all pretenders and all people who shouldn't be in public office spaces will never find their way in public office spaces.
So are you saying that once you come into the position of an MP, our security will be safe?
That is obviously going to be the case. I've worked as a commissioner in the National Police Service Commission,
okay,
whereby we, with other agencies, but our core theme was to change the culture of the police from a colonial culture to a democratic culture, including training, including the way we recruit, promote, transfer, and carry out disciplinary mechanism. Kazi yetu kubwa is to unlock and break the grip which the executive has over the police services. Our job was to make it independent. Isitumika kama a colonial tool of enforcing power and maintaining the status quo. Now, I know the inner mechanics of how that is done. I was part of the National Police Service vetting team in order for us also to inculcate the issue of community policing. A lot needs to be done still. I used to go and defend the budget of the National Police Service and in particular of the Commission in Parliament. It was a joint effort. Lakini it was quite difficult to make Parliament understand, MPs understand, kwamba we have these very heavy needs and in this priority, they have their own thinking which is not based on what the experts are saying. Now, should I become, I will become the MP for Mvita constituency, when I do become, not when, if I become the MP for Mvita, I know where the shoe exactly pinches and I'll be able to put the entire security sector together, look at the real pressing demands and how are we going to advocate for a culture change so that we have more security on the ground. More security doesn't mean more guns. More security doesn't mean operational efficiency. It's just a small part of it. Better security means how do the citizens take up in a kazi ya polisi and to be aligned with them and be happy with them and cooperate with them and have this idea of proper information gathering. So, ikiwa tutaweza kuenhance hivyo, obviously the police will work better. There is a whole area of police welfare, including police housing, police salaries, and equipment. We've done very well on equipment side, but on police housing and on police parks and all that, we've not done very well. And it's because Parliament has been a bit stingy in seeing why this is important. I'll be now in Parliament, nitaomba kama nitawekwa kwa security committee hapo, and I'll be able to really re-engineer the way we do our security, including prisons, which needs a lot of reforms. But if I will for sure be able to ensure that there is proper security. Not only that, security is not just the police. Security is also having proper socio-economic development. Sasa nimezungumza about the budget function of the MP and how the MP can be in charge of policy, can be in charge of the laws to ensure that we improve and we reach the heights that we're supposed to reach economically, a society that is developed, a society ambayo imeondolewa deprivation, a society where youths have hope, a society where you have access to health, access to education, access to water. Article 43, like I have articulated, is a society that is not going to be bent towards insecurity and disturbances. So, all in all, this is a whole package of activities where you are going to maintain security, the soft aspects and the hard aspects. Thank you.
Do you think the National Assembly has done enough to address Mombasa's socio-economic problems?
Not at all. Because
and what more could be done?
Not at all. Parliamentarians have failed in protecting the resources of Mombasa, in having the right policies in place and legislation in place so that we improve our situation. We have more clinics, we have more doctors, we have more teachers, we expand on teaching spaces. With CBC, the need is going to be even more acute. We are staring at further problems. So in terms of getting resources and implementing the grand and broad government objectives, the visions of the economic visions, kama ile tulikuwa nazo 2030, 2040, whatever, 2050, short term, mid term, all those are completely locked in with what parliamentarians do. Parliamentarians of areas which already enjoy the benefits, the majoritarian areas, they don't need to do anything. They have it all. The system is tilted towards their favor. Ni hawa MPs wanaotoka kwa marginalized areas whereby they need to use katiba effectively, public participation effectively in getting resources allocated to a place. So if we have situations that we do, poor health, poor sanitation, broken infrastructure, broken economy, everything is broken, rapid drug abuse, and we know that the state is supposed to take care of drug abuse and drug importation. If you think that all this is failing, we have gangs knifing one another in Old Town. We have Old Town which is dilapidated. We have other areas around Mombasa and around the island and Mvita constituency, which is a sore. We don't have a push for the open skies policy, which is the real factor why tourism at the coast and in Mombasa is lagging behind, way behind. Then we're looking at legislators who have gone there to do nothing. Mimi nasema kwa Kiswahili, wanaenda Nairobi wanakuwa watalii, wakija Mombasa wanakuwa wasanii. And that is where the problem is. People who are functionally incapable of being in governance, and they have absolutely no role in checking the executive, whether at the basis of the county level or on the national level. There is a complete systemic failure and co-option of our MPs into grand theft and grand corruption and into very serious conflict of interest positions. My entry is about to change that. I'm not a status quo candidate. I'm a transformative candidate. A transformative constitution requires a transformative representative and leader. I think that is the package I bring from Mombasa, and I think I've answered your question whether how well or no I think of our current MPs.
Definitely, yes, you have answered our question. What is the view on socio-economic problems that confront Mombasa County, especially from the perspective of the impact of SGR?
Yeah. You know, the backbone of Mombasa's economy has been the port, blue economy, and transport. Haulage of cargo to upcountry and inland destinations has been what Mombasa is all about. It's a port city. Hakuna port city yoyote duniani ambao imekuwa deprived and its people are deprived of the benefits of being a port city like Mombasa has been done. The Portuguese tried, they failed. Arab colonialism tried, failed. British colonialism tried and failed. Post-independence Kenya, we were thriving, but the current regime has made it happen that there is nothing in it for us. So in terms of systemic failure, ya port services and the SGR, which is haulage. You cannot disconnect SGR from the port. It has devastated the economy, and there is a study conducted by several institutions, including Uhuru, including Mombasa County itself, on the devastating effects of this. It's very well documented. Transporters have lost business. The people who help in what we call the turn people. I don't like to use the word turn boy because it is colonial and very degrading. The drivers have lost work. Now, drivers support families, they support children in school. That supports economy going around. It supports even mama boga, na ule mama anatengeza mahindi kuuza. They no longer have that business. It is, I'm saying these are the driving heads of the economy of Mombasa. You break that driving head, nothing else remains. The tail will be there. Ile mkia itabakia itacheza kwa muda kidogo, but eventually it will just die off. We are steering into the possibility of Mombasa becoming a ghost town, and that is absolutely unconstitutional, unacceptable under any norms, including international norms, and we must put up a fight to bring Mombasa back economically on its feet. And that's the work of Parliament, that is the work of leaders, that is the work of proper representation. And with my background in the port and in logistics and the law and constitutional law and our constitutional history, I perfectly fit the bill for that work.
Mombasa's perspective of the impact of the SGR is that it is directly related to the larger national debt problem. The negative socio-economic situation of Mombasa is because of unstable debt and also lack of transparency, openness, accountability in public finance management. Okwa Mombasa has petitioned in courts for violation of the rights of access to information in respect of SGR agreements and other related documentation. What is your view of public participation in respect of public finance management, both at the county and national level?
Okay. Now, the public finance chapter iliyotengenezwa na hii katiba was one which is purposeful in dispersing wealth to all regions and to take devolution into account. One of the beautiful things about this constitution as a cross-cutting issue, and particularly in the finance chapter, ni kwamba in the way in which we want to use public finances, there must be public participation in budget making in particular, so that both at the county level and the national level, you take the needs and desires and hopes of the people on board, and then do your technical work to see how the budget can achieve that, how the finance mechanisms, including taxation, including monetary policies, can be geared towards meeting the aspirations of the people, which is to have a more prosperous society. To the extent that administrators, the executive, does it without any public participation, and Parliament is complicit in this, it also allows a situation where public participation, even including the participation of the parliamentarians, is dispensed with. We have a system of extraction, we have a system of corruption and grand corruption, we have a system where we don't prioritize how we use our public finances to meet the aspirations of the people, health, wealth, education, security, and the likes. Public participation forms the substratum of everything that we do, especially in our public spaces, and more particularly in public finance. Hata hapa tukiangalia, utakuja kuona watu wangapi wameshughulishwa na MCA wao, kuangalia kwamba kuna budget inatoka kwa aina gani na mali gani. That is why we have this crazy thing, whereby we have a waterfront that is so beautiful. And if you walk a few meters away, you come to an area where there are effluents on the streets. So what was the priority there? To make a beautiful waterfront, or to start repairing drainages and take care of public health issues? What is more important? To have haulage of goods by a railway line which is dead on arrival, or to have a system whereby economic thrives. For example, if proper public participation was done, no Kenyan would have accepted the workings of an SGR. We would have gone for the idea that expand the Mombasa-Nairobi highway into 4 or 5 lanes like it was conceived before. Movement of cargo will be quick, there will be no disruption in services, and then keep on expanding all the way to Malaba and other border points so that we are able to service our hinterland very efficiently. I'm telling you for free, you have a nice lorry doing 100 kilometers per hour, it takes 4 or 5 hours, it's dead, it's arrived in Nairobi, there are no disruptions. And what is better, the trunk road was supposed to be financed on a PPP basis or on a toll basis. There are so many other things that we could have done. Like whereas in Nairobi, for example, we needed a light train system to ease traffic, we went for this double-decker road, which is so ugly, which is so expensive, and it doesn't serve the purpose. It would have served better the interests of Mwananchi. Tungelikuwa na light rails for the same amount of usage of funds, whether public or toll. We would have been better off with a proper transport system than doing a road which is very elitist, or probably it was done for other things in mind, and that is the problem. Now, the disconnect between the kind of projects that we need and what is really given, which brings us a very high debt ratio, which is going to make us suffer for even more and other generations will suffer, is the aspect that people do things with impunity. Because if you have public participation, you no longer suffer impunity. Remove public participation, what we get is impunity. That's the simple mathematics and rationale around it.
So how will you improve public participation being effectively conducted on the issues that concern Mombasa residents?
Yeah, you see, many people rush to court. Court has its own limitations. There's the time factor and the factor that we have separation of powers, and always we raise the issue like it is our duty to do A, B, C, D. It's not the court's duty to interfere. But most of the times, the courts do take their responsibility, and many of our rulings today in terms of constitutional matters are hinged on the idea of lack of public participation. You look at all landmark cases, including the BBI thing, it was largely based on lack of public participation. So the thing is very simple. You start improving your governance structures. You start petitioning for better avenues in facilitating public participation, whether it is within the executive or the legislature and even the judiciary, even in terms of the commission. Do governance structures that institutions speak with one another, not to speak at each other. If you want to really further this constitution, and one of the chief drivers of furthering policy, of putting down policies, and on amending the laws, and of holding people accountable is strictly the business of Parliament. So as an MP who is rightly geared to my functions, I will really be able to further the issue of public participation and even educate people, give them civic education that if public participation does not happen at the county level, the national level, you must do A, B, C, D. So you force the issues, you force change, you force transformation, and you gather all those elements within our Kenyan society, both in government, developmental partners, as well as NGOs, into having this mantra of public participation. And I'm telling you, there is no limit that this country cannot reach.
As a country, we struggle with building long-term collaborations with CSOs and the government. In Mombasa, CSOs are leading important human rights advocacy, and it is critical that the leadership provides space for collaboration and consultations,
Yes.
even when difficult questions are being asked. How will you contribute to civil society?
Yeah.
Assembly building consultative spaces.
Consensus building, involvement of civil society. Civil society, a high trust institution, the government is not. So with intervention of civil society, we can have more public participation. I can tell you from a personal experience how I've done that. The National Police Service needed reform. It needed a lot of reorganization of governance structures. It needed vetting structures. It needed proper training. This was something that the civil society concerned with advocacy of transforming the police already had in their offices and in their fights. What did I personally do as the main architect in this transformation? What I did was very simple. In the commission, we are working through committees, and we are given the free hand to have committees in place, inducted in the commission, so long as they are not in charge of decision making, which can give you technical advice, technical input, the aspect of public participation, and to bring on the table all the research they've done kwa miaka mingi sana, and mesh it up together, put it together, and go on a transformative agenda. What I have personally done was, on my committees, we had seats for the civil society which are relevant to the task at hand, more particularly wale ambao walikuwa concerned with human rights and concerned with police reforms. The police reform caucus is what I had in all my work in terms of transforming the police. So it's something that is not strange to me. Na ni kitu ambacho as an MP, I will start putting together women groups, youth groups, and every other possible CSO, including but not limited to the faith-based organization. They are part of the larger body which needs to be put together in order to have very good governance and facilitate public participation. I have done it before, and in my plan, because I have a 100 days plan and I have a 5-year plan which is broken down into 1-year plan. When I get sworn in as a parliamentarian, my work is cut out for me, and my work is going to be hinged on very serious public participation and stakeholder formation zije pamoja, so that we continue serving the public, because all these resources that are lying around in CSOs, in FPOs, and in government, and also with international partners, they are all geared towards the betterment of our society and to take care of our socio-economic as well as political issues. So you're talking to a person who has been doing it all along.
Okay. What are the commitments to addressing the impacts of the SGR? What are your commitments on the impact of unsustainable national debt?
Yes.
As a representative of Mombasa, and what are your commitments to promoting integrity, inclusion, participation of Mombasa residents in decision making? Should the people be involved in the procurement be held personally responsible?
Okay, can you ask them one after the other so that I don't have a pen and paper? But very quickly, give me the first one and give you an answer.
Okay. What are your commitments to addressing the impacts of SGR?
100%.
What are your commitments on impact of unsustainable national debt?
Same, 100%.
And what are your commitments in promoting integrity, inclusion, participation of Mombasa residents in decision making?
That is the cornerstone of what I want to do.
Should the people be involved in the procurement to be held personally responsible?
Oh yes, and criminally liable. Unajua, manake if you go against these procedures, you are not going to hide under my tenure and saying that, you know, we are not responsible for the actions we do in the course of our business. In the course of our business was not to use procurement for grand theft or for corruption. So you will be held personally liable. I know the laws, I know exactly what needs to be done.
As a lawyer, have you played any role in the petition of SGR and the port?
When the petitions were all done, I was part of the National Police Service Commission. I had my commitments, and I was not able to get into issues that may lead to a derogation of my public duties as a commissioner. But yes, in my heart, in my thinking, in my discussion I was, and when I got out of the petition, I am completely committed towards the salvage of our people and completely opposing the monopoly aspect of SGR.
Okwa Mombasa will continue to follow your progress towards your goals. Can we hold you to account for these commitments once you succeed in 2022?
Absolutely, yes. And what I can tell Okwa is that I will perform beyond the expectations which they have.
Okay, we give you last few minutes to speak. And tell us, why should we vote for you?
You vote for me because of what you've done so far. Yeah.
Mm.
I'm a student of political science in terms of experience, qualifications. I've done law. I'm a lawyer. I've done shipping for so many years, so I know what shipping is all about. And I have a master's degree in constitutional law, with my track record of working in 3 constitutional commissions with no blemish at all, and delivering on each one of them. With my track record in how I'm able to use the CDF fund, with my track record in doing pro bono work for the community. The way I can articulate issues around the Constitution and how we can further our Constitution. You're looking at a person who is transformative in nature. My leadership style is transformative, and they really hate the status quo, and it is the status quo which is bowing us down. So these are the things that I'm putting before my Mvita constituents to consider: experience, to consider integrity, to consider educational qualifications, not just being somebody who has a degree in swimming or a degree in bricklaying or a degree in physical education, but degrees or qualifications that are well oriented towards what we need to transform our society and the different roles of an MP. I'm a perfect fit for this role. Mvita wasifanye makosa ya kutafuta mtu ambaye hana experience yoyote, hana relevant education, doesn't have the heart in the right place. I have been able to demonstrate all these aspects coming together to make me a very attractive candidate of taking Mvita forward. I humbly appeal to voters to vote with our heads. I know we've been bribed. I know we've been threatened. I know people have brought entertainment for us. They've done comical things. We need comic relief. But when you go to the ballot box, think about your economy, your future, your health, your children, educational status, and your status as a citizen of this great Republic of Kenya. Ukiafikiria hayo, I am sure mkono wako utaenda to the right box to put your cross or your tick, and that is Murshid Abdalla Mohammed for Mvita MP. Na washukuru sana.
Mr. Murshid Abdalla, we at Okoa, Mombasa wish you well and look forward to what comes next for you. Best of luck.
Absolutely. I'll make sure you're my partners on board.
Thank you.